we are here with our huge Nintendo Direct predictions. We're so excited, and we're going to get into those predictions in just a few minutes. But first of all, we'd like to say that this episode is sponsored by Squarespace. Thank you, Squarespace.
Yes, we just got back from Summer Game Fest, immediately turning the page to this June Nintendo Direct.
Yes.
So excited to talk about what could be in this. This is one where the degree of confidence, depending on who you talk to, maybe is not as high.
Varied
as some of the other ones. But first of all, we should say we flew in different directions from Summer Game Fest.
We did.
Where in the world? I'm at home. Where in the world are you right now?
Where in the world is Krysta San Diego? I am in Toronto, Canada. Very nice. First time here. I'm actually here to meet with some indie developers and do some cool stuff. So I'm really excited to be here. But yes, we literally got back from Summer Game Fest last night, and I immediately got on a plane to fly to Toronto like 12 hours later. So I'm a little tired. Sorry if my today wasn't as energetic as usual.
Rate your physical and emotional well-being at the moment.
I woke up at 5 a.m. Pacific time to get on a flight after being at Summer Game Fest for like 2 straight days. Physically, a 2. Emotionally, like a 12. So...
A 2? Oh, that's quite low.
The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, as they say.
We are summoning the last remnants of our corporeal bodies to deliver this podcast.
Yes, I will.
Wow.
I will. You know, I'm always here for, no matter where in the world I am, Ninty Direct predictions, Ninty Direct reactions. So it doesn't matter.
It's so true.
It doesn't matter where I am. It doesn't matter if it's like the middle of the night or like I'm in like the countryside in China or something. I'll be here. I'm here to do this. So I'm excited.
Throw another sticker on that suitcase.
That's right.
Yeah. So yes, we did get back from Summer Game Fest. We are recording this on Monday late afternoon. We got back late last night. And we have a big vlog on the way.
Yes.
Coming that is out now that you should check out, where we go in depth, in great detail on everything that we saw and did at Summer Game Fest.
Right.
But I just wanted to ask you, like up top, because we didn't really get a chance to talk about it so much, like what just general feelings on this event this year? How did you feel about it?
Yeah, going into it, I already had the sense that the event just felt bigger. You and I were talking leading up to the event, like, gosh, we really have such a full schedule. We're getting to see so many games. We also noted that most of, with the exception of Nintendo, most of like the big publishers, the big companies in the games industry were there. They were there for the play days, sort of the different showcases, whether it was Sony's right before or Microsoft's during Summer Game Fest play days, just kind of really are in that timing. So to me, it does feel like this show has gotten bigger, this time frame around the announcements in June. Like the game industry does not want to lose this, it feels like. And I'm happy to see it sort of grow from when it started a few years ago, especially now that E3 is sort of dead and buried. I feel like we do need something around this time. I love it. I love just like going and getting hands-on of games, obviously, but also seeing tons of friends and having that reunion feeling. Like, I really like that. So I felt really good. Like, honestly, I think this is one of the best, if not the best Summer Game Fest like we've ever had. I had so much fun. We saw so many great games. We were part of, these bigger showcase events, and it was really cool. And it felt like that exciting moment in June again, and I really loved it.
Yeah, people should know Summer Game Fest is not just the live stream that Jeff Keighley does.
Right.
And specifically what we were there for was the hands-on event that runs for several days following that. So there were, dozens and dozens of games that we could go and check out. It's nowhere near on the scale of an E3. And they've done it at the same venue the last 3 years, or the only 3 years that they have done this event. And it feels like they're finally at the point where they may be getting too big for that. And I kind of wonder what is the next move. And I think we both made the joke of like, well, clearly the next move is the Los Angeles Convention Center. Please no.
No. No.
But I think my message to everybody like in charge of this would be, okay, there's interest in doing something around this time. You've been able to pull most of the industry together. Like now really think through like what is the right format and right things for people to be doing, and sort of avoid the errors that E3 made. And
Yeah.
I don't think they should just assume like, oh well, this is the format, this is we've nailed it. I think like keep iterating on it, keep
Yeah.
trying new things, because I think there's even more that could be done.
Yeah, and especially because people consume information, people get their news in such different ways now. There's different kinds of people sharing that news. It's not just very traditional games media anymore, like ourselves included. We are very much like a creator that loves like video format, and we love like the lifestyle part of it. So whatever they can do to not make it feel very like dated or kind of put themselves into that E3 box, I think is good, because that means that this event will have more staying power. But yeah, it was really good to see like all the big companies represented this year. That was cool.
Yeah. And that the broadcast event, so like we did a road trip down to LA, and we were in the car the day that happened, and some people were asking us like, oh no, are you going to feel like you're going to miss out like the big event? And it's like, well, we know by now like the type of events that Jeff does, and yes, it can be fun to be there in person to experience, but it's not really essential because it's a made for a stream type of event. So like I was driving, you were in the next seat watching it on your phone, and you were kind of like calling out what was happening. Like I feel like I got 85% of the experience.
Yeah,
well, of course, following all traffic laws to the T.
Very
perfectly
legal.
Right. And then again, for us, like the event really starts the next day, whereas with like the Game Awards, there's kind of not as much happening once that wraps up. It's kind of like a one and done sort of thing.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
Thing.
I enjoy it when Jeff Keighley says, oh, and coming up later this week, the Xbox Game Showcase, part of Summer Game Fest. It's like, oh, does Xbox know this? Were they consulted? That they're now part of Summer? Everything is part of Summer Game Fest.
I feel like people are like ready to get sucked into it though. Like they clearly want to be there. They see value in it. Yeah, Jeff was, around with all of these big execs and touting the show, and he was obviously there for the big Xbox event. They do it around this time because they know everybody's in LA for this. So like it is significant that these bigger companies are like into it, So yeah, it's pretty cool to see it evolve.
I did see and hear from a few people. They're like, it's been about 5 years since we had the last proper E3, and now the nostalgia is setting in. Yeah. And like I kind of miss that, and I kind of want that, and I don't think you and I have yet fallen down that path. No. But it is interesting like that there is a contingent that likes and wants that, and there are still remnants. Like that Xbox Game Showcase that we went to felt very old-timey E3, where it's like, yes, everybody is going to come to this huge theater. We're going to pull out all the stops. We're going to spend a lot of money, really, razzle dazzle you.
Yes.
And that was cool. But again, at the end, we were sitting down in this theater to watch a YouTube video.
Right. It wasn't like a live stage presentation, but there is something to be said about watching it together in a room full of people that are excited. Like it's that lonely experience of like, I mean, we get to watch it with each other, which is fine. But like, if you're just by yourself at home, I mean, I guess that's what people watch reactions, because they feel like they're watching it with somebody. But like, it's like 200 people all reacting in a room to these exciting announcements. There is something to be said about that kind of shared experience that we lost, frankly, when we lost those big E3 conferences and things like that. So there are elements of it that I think is worth re-examining, but I think like the full, let's bring E3 back, that's not something I'm super interested in.
Yeah. I have a slight contrarian comment to what you just said. I agree it's fun to watch with other people. I think though, like sometimes you can be led down a path of like, oh, people are clapping, so that must be the cool thing that I should think is also cool. Like I kind of like the idea of like, I'm going to watch this. I'm going to lock myself in this room. I'm not going to have like Twitter up, or I'm not going to be looking at other people's reactions. Like I am going to come to my own conclusions about this thing and then release myself into the world and like compare and contrast.
Wow, you're sad.
You're looking at me like
you live
I'm
a sad,
nuts.
lonely life. This is the difference between you and me. You
seal the room. I'm ready to watch the direct.
You being like a loner and like a totally antisocial person, and me being like a very outgoing person that wants to like hang out with people and like have a shared human experience. This is exactly why we're friends, because we need each other. I do agree with you though. Sometimes you can be swayed. I'm very easily swayed. I'm very easily swayed.
The group think can take hold of you. And you're I'm not sure how I feel, but people seem excited, so I guess I should get excited too.
No. That totally happens to me. I'm like such a creature of like anyone can market to me. I'm like such a sucker, you know? So yeah, I totally like see your point of view as well, but I still like it. I like having that like excitement and like, oh well, we'll fall into mob mentality sometimes. Who cares? You know, it's still like a fun. I mean, this is video games. It's not like we're like making some important decision for the human race. Like, let's be real. It's gonna be
takes must be kept so pure and pristine until I leave the sealed room. You see,
you need to listen to that Gears of War trailer. That
I'm gonna listen to this Mad World song about 1,000 times. I'm gonna weep in a corner.
Exactly.
And then emerge. Yes. All right. Let's not wait any longer. Let's jump into these Nintendo Direct predictions. But first, this episode is sponsored by Squarespace.
Thank you,
Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform to help you stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your terms.
I love Squarespace. Now, we have like a couple of different domains, but our main use of Squarespace is for our consulting site. I've been asking you, like, should we start the other site? And you're like always joking around, like, with what a free time. But at least if we use Squarespace, it'll be easy and fast, to build a website from scratch, which is what we did for our consulting site. So if you ever change your mind and you want me to put like the podcast website together, can use all the Squarespace tools and it's going to be great.
Well, maybe I do just need a change of perspective, because you're right. It does make it very easy using the Squarespace blueprint. There are so many different layouts that you can just choose from that all look really cool. Drag and drop. The days of needing like a dedicated web designer are no more. Like get all your stuff together, drag it out, test it out, see how it looks, make tweaks on the go. It's all stuff that like, people who are like myself, like novice level or maybe even lower, can just, figure out on their own. And it's very, very simple.
Exactly. And they have a video collection content piece as well. So like if we wanted to put all of our podcasts and YouTube videos on a dedicated kitandkrista.com Squarespace site, we can do that. So maybe you will change your mind.
Indeed. You may have just changed it.
All right.
So head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/KitKrysta to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
We'll put the link right over here and also in the description below.
All right. Direct predictions. We famously said last week that we will not be doing any direct predictions until Nintendo drops the tweet telling us exactly when and roughly how long it will be, and yet here we are today doing this. What happened?
We got we were playing a game of chicken, I think, with ourselves and also with Nintendo, and we totally lost that game. We were like, no, we gotta do it now. Then we kind of panicked, like we should probably get it out there before too long, just because the direct is probably coming pretty soon. So here we are, going back on our word and just doing these predictions without the tweet.
Well, we're in the rare position of, it being pre-announced this far in advance. And, yes, there's some information that you would get out of that tweet, but I think we know, fairly enough, to do these. And it's always good to be a little bit early than a little bit late when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah,
I think.
Exactly.
We just said, let's just do this. Let's just let it roll. So I always like to ask you at the start, because this is how Nintendo thinks. What is the objective of this Nintendo Direct. There is always an objective and a purpose.
Exactly. Nintendo never does anything just for the sake of doing it, as we know and learned from our many years working at Nintendo. But yeah, they really go into really, every single direct with a clear goal and purpose in mind. I think this one, the number one purpose is keep the people focused on current gen Switch. I need to say this over and over again to myself because my mind is also starting to veer away from that, and I'm thinking about the future, and I think a lot of Nintendo fans are thinking that way as well, but Nintendo doesn't want you to do that. They want you to focus your mind on the current gen system, and they want to keep taking your money for the current gen system. They don't want you to think I'll just hold out. I won't buy any more games in 2024. I'll wait till, the Switch 2 is announced, and then I'll spend money on more Nintendo games. They do not want that. They want to take your money now. So yeah, I think they're going to be very focused on that. And every single announcement that they make in this direct will be focused on getting you to continue to buy stuff this year for your current gen Switch.
Yeah, I wrote down what I would have written down if I was writing up some sort of, official Nintendo document for this. Objective: keep players engaged with Nintendo Switch ahead of the Switch 2 reveal and build momentum for one final strong holiday for the platform.
Yes.
That the big holiday push is still on the table.
Yeah.
One last chance to cash in on a big holiday season and Black Friday. And a lot of that involves, kind of setting the table with games for September, October, and November.
Yeah.
It's yes, there will be games, but when they come out is also important. So I kind of thought through that, what might fall into each of those months, because again, those also serve kind of a different purchase in building that momentum.
Exactly. And Nintendo is interested in doing the following things. Obviously, they know that the current Nintendo fans, the people that are, very much all in on Nintendo, are going to want certain types of games, but they also know that they have a very broad reach. They can still, even in this late stage of Switch and that holiday season, they can still reach more of that non-gaming, more expanded audience. Grandma still needs to buy little Timmy a gift, and they still have an opportunity to sell to that person. So I think they're going to be a bit diverse with the types of games that are coming out, and I think you're totally right. The seasonality and the timing of when these things are coming out will be really important, because they're going to want to hit those audiences at certain times to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, and we know the biggest of the big franchises, those are probably, set aside. Those are Switch 2 games that'll get revealed when that hardware gets revealed. But there's still a lot of, smaller games that will resonate a lot with fans, some series we still have not yet seen on the Switch, or like you were saying, games that just have mass appeal.
Yep.
That can really, again, cash in on the big install base that you have that is looking for a gift or a gift to play or a game to play, at Thanksgiving with everybody. So it's kind of got that kind of dual approach. Now, one other interesting consideration is the situation with Switch 2 backwards compatibility, because again, nothing is confirmed, but the more that kind of you hear out there is it's probably going to have backwards compatibility, which I do think is good for these games that get announced here, that it just gives them kind of an extra life, where it's not a situation where the door slams shut for the people who buy a Switch 2 once this comes out. They put the Switch away and you never really think about it again. You can keep playing those. They can keep selling those. And I'm not even talking about any sort of performance boost that could happen, but just the fact that, play can carry on from one piece of hardware to the other, I do think may impact how they are looking at these games and the life that these games can have.
Yeah, I think more so than ever, obviously the transition was so different between Wii U and Switch, because that generation was just terrible and they just wanted to move away from that completely. So the door did slam on that. I don't think it's going to be that case at all here. Obviously, this is one of Nintendo's most successful generations. They have a huge install base that they're going to continue to support and want to move over to the next generation. So I think they will be considering things, as that transition takes place next year, whether it's, the obvious backwards compatibility stuff, but also like dual SKU things, things like that make it easier for people to justify still buying stuff, even with the few months that we have left. So yeah, I think all of that will hopefully set them up for still like a strong holiday, and then again have that momentum to kind of carry them forward into that transition, because we know that if you lose that momentum going into it, it could be pretty bad. And they're probably thinking along those lines as well.
Now, the games that get brought up the most when people talk about this direct are all these potential remakes. And some of these have been rumored for years and years and years. But the reality is that this direct is probably not going to be all remakes.
Right.
So I think that'll be fun once we get into this. Is like I want to go through each one of these rumored remakes and be like, is this going to be there? Is this going to be there?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it can't just be all remakes, even though that's what people are talking about the most now.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be not all remakes, but I think it will heavily be skewed towards more remakes. I mean, you and I might differ on this.
Okay.
So we can go through it, but yeah, I do think they're probably looking for things that are a bit easier for them to like get out the door, and Nintendo's always squirreling away stuff for that rainy day. They have a lot of stuff in the pipe, and like this is the moment to break glass, I think, and just get those things out there. This is like your last chance. So I do think that they have stuff that they've been holding back that is in the remake category that is going to be in this direct.
All right, let's get into some games here. Yeah. Why don't you start us off with your first prediction here?
So I kind of broke mine out into like obvious ones, likely ones, third-party DLC, and then things that I just don't think will get a mention at all. So why don't we go the obvious ones first? Both these games have been heavily rumored. One is the Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. That one I think is pretty likely, if not like obvious. And the other one is, of course, the highly, highly rumored Dragon Quest HD 2D remake. So those two are sort of in my obvious camp. I do think that the likelihood of these games coming is pretty high. Again, these are two games that really hit that like core Nintendo fan base, and they're going to want to keep these people really, really happy, because they know that if anything, these are the people that are going to move over when they go to Switch 2. So Nintendo's going to be thinking about like, how can we keep our core fans like really happy with us? How do we keep them feeling good about the next generation coming up? And I think these are two games that really fit that bill.
I had both of those as well. In the case of Dragon Quest, that's one that Midori had been talking about quite extensively, and even went so far as to say that's probably going to be in the direct. Now, whether it's the one game or the three games all together, that remains to be seen. They're doing 3 games in one, that would be amazing. So that sounds very cool. And then Fire Emblem, I mean, this is just one that has been long rumored, and like you were saying, makes a lot of sense for what they're looking to accomplish here, and that would make a big splash with fans. I see this potentially slotting into like late summer, like an August game, where it's like, yeah, Fire Emblem fans, we don't have to do a ton of education on what this is. We could do a pretty tight little campaign on that and get it out the door, and again, really kind of jumpstart the last push of the year with this game.
I can see that being the game at PAX too. Have some sort of announcement that leads into a playable demo or something like that at PAX. That's a show for core gaming fans, and they know that is a place where they can showcase a game like this really well. So that late summer time frame totally makes sense to me.
Okay, what else?
So that's my like 2 obvious ones, and then I have like a likely camp of games, and these do include some of those other rumored ports that we can talk about. My first one here is Metroid Prime 2 and 3, because obviously we got 1. I wonder if they're going to do some sort of like dual pack for this, like kind of a physical dual pack, maybe with a special edition, something a little bit more like gifty. Like I can see like that weave steel case again somehow, like something like that, to make it feel like very premium. Maybe it's like you get 2 in this nice package for like $80 or something like that. Maybe there's some other items with it, but I can see them kind of blowing that out a little bit more than the shadow drop they did for Metroid Prime 1, and making it more like a gift kind of item, or a collector's item, I guess.
All right. That includes 2 and 3, but not 1.
I wasn't sure if 1 would be, but I guess they could, right?
See, it starts to get a little confusing because they've already released 1 on its own. There is a physical version of that, and that came out late, so that was confusing on its own.
Right.
I have 2 in the show as a shadow drop. I do not have 3. Because again, I think, it makes sense for them to do a slow build of Metroid games leading up to whatever they're going to do with Metroid Prime 4, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. So, 2 would be the next one to get that out. People have been, debating like, well, does it get the full treatment like Metroid Prime 1 did? Mm-hmm. This is going to be a little bit messy, I think. Yeah. So whatever solution they have, it's going to be something that makes sense to them, but it may not make sense to all of us.
Yeah, there's definitely messiness around how to cadence these out, what you do with it. The pricing of 1 is also like a big question mark for like, and as an example of how Nintendo treats GameCube games. People always talk about like, how come that game is only $40, but then like Thousand Year Door is $60?
Very strange.
Like, what the heck is happening? And like, what does this mean? So they kind of like mess themselves up, I think. So yeah, but maybe they can get back on track by doing some like trilogy pack, or I don't know. But I do feel like there is something.
But I already brought Prime 1. Now I'm mad.
You're going to be mad. You're going to be very mad.
I'm going to buy it again.
Get it. He's like selling out. Like you're going to be really
I'm going to be mad once, twice, and 3 times mad.
Yeah,
yes.
We're going to be mad Prime 1, 2, and 3. But there is something about like some sort of physical special edition that I just can't get out of my head for these games. Like I just feel like it works for Metroid games, and people want them and want to buy it that way. So I can see it.
All right. Okay. So far we've agreed on most of this.
Yeah. My next one is not a port. It is a new Mario Party game around the holidays. This is also a Midori rumor, though. There was a code name that was suspiciously, maybe, could be, somehow related to a Mario Party game. There has not been a Mario Party game. I think someone said like 4 years or something like that. It's been a while.
The 3-year cycle is something people have found.
It's coming up.
And again, nobody ever told us about a 3-year timer for Mario parties, but in that vein of like what can they relatively easily make and get out there? Mm-hmm. This. Yeah. And then what can you put out that has just like broad appeal? Also this.
Yeah, exactly.
So it does make sense. They can find another way to, do a riff on a Mario Party. Mm-hmm. As I was looking at that calendar of the year that I was talking about, I could see that being in October.
Oh, I was going to say early November, like before Thanksgiving.
I think maybe it was Super Mario Party came out in October, and that ended up being like a really good table setter for, everything to come after that. Yeah, we're agreeing too much. I don't like this.
I know. But it's just it's kind of obvious though, Like I kind of feel like these are the things that are, I don't know, like everyone's been talking about it. That's probably why.
All right.
The other one that I have sort of as a broad appeal title, this was a little out of left field, so I don't know if you'll agree with this one. But Mario Super Sluggers, or some kind of Mario Sports.
I did think of that.
Yeah. Again, broad appeal. You're using your most famous character, but like not in like a brand new 3D Mario game, because you're probably saving that for Switch 2. But you want Mario during the holidays. People want Mario, and people want a game they can play together with their family. They want something that's really easy to pick up and play. I can see them doing some sort of either a sports mix or Sluggers. Actually, I really like that game, so I kind of wanted them to announce it. But yeah, like something like that would be easy and cool for the holidays, and I think people would buy it. So
I had that and deleted it, and
oh.
I think I just ended up with too much stuff, and I was like, "There's not going to be this much." But I like your rationale. I think it would be a sports mix over a sluggers because again, you can't really sell a baseball game in Europe. Like it's limited to, North America and Japan, like Japan, Korea, like all these countries in Asia. They're into baseball now. So. But I think, Nintendo now is just like, we have to sell everything globally. So I think that hurts the chances of a new Sluggers game, as sad as that may be.
Darn it.
So I did not have that. I did not have that on my prediction, but I like your thinking there.
Yeah. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is Twilight Princess Wind Waker. What is your likelihood meter now that we're this far in? And we've been talking about this for literally like 2 years, and I'm tired of talking about it. But what do you?
Well, first of all, I'm tired and annoyed that we have to talk about these more. Second of all, I may have a big brain zag and say that we're not going to see either of these.
Do you think that we're going to get 2D Zelda instead?
I have another Zelda game in mind that I will tell you in a moment. But so the reasoning for this is we got these two games on Wii U, and if you were to re-release these on Switch now, you're removing some features. Like the Wind Waker version had some cool dual screen features, and it would just be, the same game, obviously in HD, but it was in HD before. So it's like, what actually is the difference versus, maybe we sit on these, if we got these, let's sit on them a little bit longer. And we put them out on the next system, and then at least you can say, oh, now 4K. It's in 4K.
4K.
So there's some sort of a jump that happened. Mm-hmm. So I kind of talked myself out of these. I was like, first of all, we've waited this long. We can keep waiting. But then it's like, what actually is the benefit beyond like, oh, well, now you have them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they see the urgent need to strategically put them out now. And again, you have that weird thing of like, well, how much time is left before the next system? And you've got 2 games. It starts to get really like
messy
compacted.
Again. Yeah, like the Metroid.
So again,
stuff.
for the remakes, I think Metroid is a higher priority for them.
Yeah.
Because we're building up to something with Metroid. And Fire Emblem, again, has a good purpose. So, I'm going to put those in the no camp. Maybe just to spite them for making us wait for so long.
Now I don't want it, Nintendo. Don't give it to me.
You want it in the first place.
Yeah. This is reverse psychology. It's not going to work. It's going to totally backfire. But no, I think that you might be right. And I was sort of talking myself out of it too, because I was like, I kind of had the same thought. Like, well, at this point, you might as well make them 4K. Like what would be holding you back from doing that?
Yeah.
And like, then it's like, then it means that you can make it feel like next gen or what, I don't know. I mean, I think I was getting a little jaded from having to talk about it for so many years. So yeah, I kind of put it in my like not very likely camp either now. I'm like, I've given up on this. Yeah. But I do think like a 2D Zelda is still like a top down, one of the more
Well, let me chime in here. There's one game that I haven't seen anybody mention this yet, but as I thought about it more, makes sense. It is top down. It is 2D. Mm-hmm. What about Zelda 4 Swords? How about that? Why are you making a face?
Because I don't really like that game.
I didn't say Triforce Heroes. I said 4 Swords. It's different.
I mean, it's not, okay.
Again, a bit of a lighter lift than a full proper, original, or maybe even a remake of a 2D Zelda game. Mm-hmm. A lot of people out there, a lot of people to pass a Joy-Con to play this multiplayer Zelda.
God. It's
a different spin. I could see that. I think it's something that makes some sense. I could see that slotting in as like a September game. Mm-hmm. Again, to kind of transition from like something that's more like Nintendo fan, and by the time you're into October, November, it gets to be a bit more, mass audience,
broader.
This is maybe not the thing that every Zelda fan wants, but it might be what we get. We got Triforce Heroes a little bit late in the 3DS cycle as well.
True.
Not my favorite Zelda game, but maybe now they could do some proper online stuff. I don't
I was
know.
just gonna
Well,
say,
I
like,
think there's a lot you could do.
if they add proper online multiplayer to that, it could be kind of cool, honestly. Like it
Yeah.
could be like a fun, again, like game that you play with your friends around the holiday
Put
time.
out some new maps occasionally. Take advantage of this
Yeah.
thing called the internet.
Yes, use the internet, the World
Yeah.
Wide Web, as we call it. Yeah, they could do some new custom stuff for it. The one that I was thinking about that is totally different than this is A Link Between Worlds. One of our community members got that in my head recently.
You couldn't get that out of your head, yeah.
And I'm like stuck on this. Now I'm like, I want to see Hilda again. I need to go into the wall. Like, I need a gold switch. Like, give it to me. I want all of it. I want it.
Right.
I don't know if that's very likely though. So I think yours is probably more likely, honestly.
The other remake, let's just get this out of the way. The other remake that has started to get some heat this week is Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Yes.
Again, like I don't know what took this long, but to my point earlier of like they can't just do a show that's all remakes.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, again, we waited this long. What strategic, again, what is the strategic purpose of doing this now versus doing it later on the new hardware?
If they have to choose between Fire Emblem and Xenoblade for the core Nintendo fan, I think they're going to choose Fire Emblem.
Yeah,
so
very similar audiences playing those
very
games.
similar, and they're going to look at those audiences and say, we don't need both. They don't need both.
Yep.
Because why would we waste that on them? So they will probably hold. I think they're going to more likely have Fire Emblem and then hold Xenoblade for Switch 2.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I have one more game that maybe is more far-fetched, but you know, we did an episode a while back of you know, types of things that Nintendo could do to buy some time. This is not my vaunted Year of Donkey Kong Country Anniversary Collection, but I like this idea of the Mario Kart 8 Complete Edition. That's got all the DLC, all of the booster course passes in a single package. That feels very made for the holidays, made for gifting. And again, sold, you know, however many millions of copies. There's still some people out there who's got a Switch that don't have this. So it's time to convert them. This could be the thing that gets put into Black Friday bundles.
I was going to say, if they're going to bundle anything, they will bundle that. They will bundle that.
on the Black Friday bundle with this. I could see this being, it's not the most flashy thing because so many people have it, but I could see that being a November release just in time for Black Friday. And again, we are one more time cashing in on the golden goose that is Mario Kart 8.
Especially if they are priming the audience for Mario Kart 9 in a few months. Right. This is a great way to prime them.
I also suggested in that episode something like that with Smash, and I don't think that's I don't think that's likely because I feel like that's something that they could release on Switch 2.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, the future of Smash feels a bit murky to me versus there's going to be a Mario Kart 9 on the next Switch.
Yeah, Smash is definitely going to be something that I feel like they're going to hold, like the Ultimate Edition, the Smash Ultimate Deluxe 4K.
Yeah. Exactly.
With new amiibo and maybe like 2 more fighter packs. I feel like that is like such a Switch 2 launch thing that they could just put in there pretty easily to make people excited about Switch 2.
Yeah.
So they probably hold that one. But the Mario Kart bundle is a tried and true moneymaker for Nintendo, and I totally can see them doing that again.
Bundles, though, I don't think we hear about those here. That's something they like to do closer to when those actually come out.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you have any NSO updates in your predictions?
I was like very conflicted by the NSO updates because they seem to just drop those NSO things just out of nowhere. You know, like they had that big Mega Man Game Boy drop, literally like in the wee hours of the night. It's on Japan time or whatever, it's fine, but it kind of feels to me like they don't really like to make a huge splash with NSO anymore. They're just like doing these like random Twitter drops. So I actually didn't have any in mind, but I don't know. Do you have some rare?
I got 2 games I want to mention. One I think will be in there and one I think won't.
Okay.
But I think it's coming later. The 2 games are the original Super Smash Brothers for Nintendo 64.
Okay. Nice.
And the other is Metroid Zero Mission for the Game Boy Advance. both of these would go to the deluxe tier of NSO that people have been pointing out like has been getting a little bit neglected recently. Metroid, again, would make sense on that long march to Metroid Prime 4.
Oh yeah.
Put out all these Metroid games. I would really like to play this game again. But again, I don't think you can do so many Metroid games all at once in a single direct. So I think if it's going to be Prime 2, it's not going to be this. But I do think we eventually get it. I think it's Smash 64, and this is a game that's having an anniversary. I think it's the 25th anniversary of this game. Nintendo did acknowledge that when it was the anniversary of the Game Boy, they came out and said, "Hey, here's some games from 1989 when the thing launched." So I could see them coming around a little. It's a little bit late, but coming around and saying, "Oh, by the way, it's this big anniversary for Super Smash Brothers, and here are the original games out on NSO now."
Yeah. I didn't think of that.
I'd love that.
That makes sense. To me. Yeah. Okay.
Shall we talk about Metroid Prime 4?
Yes, I have that in my no news at all, not even a mention section.
Well, do you have other things before that then?
We can talk about third party, and then I have sort of like a long shot, like
a long shot,
like 2% chance, and then the 0% chance. That's where I put Metroid Prime 4. So yeah, third party though.
Okay, what third party do you have?
Hi-Fi Rush. I have that as a shadow drop.
Oh yeah.
Because we know it's coming. Seems like this
from the grave.
From the grave, yeah. Might be a good time to just get that out there. That poor studio, but
okay.
Maybe we get a shadow drop of that. Because I do think we'll have like a few maybe like at least one shadow drop. If it's not Prime 2, then it's something else.
Silksong?
That's in the long shot category.
I put that in the lol no category.
Okay.
I'm so out on Silksong.
You're so out.
I don't even like Hollow Knight that much.
In the first place, you never were.
I don't want to hear about this game again until it comes out. I will not be commenting on it further. I'm just out.
Okay, well,
I don't care.
Then we won't talk about it again. I want the Professor Layton Fantasy Life updates. Give it to me.
Oh yeah.
I need them to actually give me the update and tell me when this game is coming out. Those two games. Well, it's preferably we know it's 2025, but it might be early 2025, like January, first half or something like that. But Fantasy Life, I think, was supposed to be this year, right? So I want to play Fantasy Life.
Good callback. Yeah, I struggled with the third party section. The only thing I wrote down definitively was Dragon Quest, which we already talked about. Yeah. I did jot down Mega Man because there seems to be some hope for that. I also put that in the lol no category. I mean, we've been waiting for that longer than Silksong.
That's my long shot category. I don't know.
Tap me on the shoulder.
I don't know.
Tap me on the shoulder when it's ready, but I will not be building up any excitement to get clowned again.
Yeah, I'm not like as big of a Mega Man fan, obviously, as you are. So my mental stakes are a little bit lower. So I guess that makes me more hopeful because I won't be as disappointed if it doesn't happen, which maybe makes sense.
I don't necessarily understand like why the hype is like what is it based on? Because they dropped some Game Boy games. I don't entirely understand. That doesn't
really mean anything. Just to put that out there very clearly, like they don't. You guys think that Nintendo is like big branding everything? They don't. So I wouldn't read too much into that. But it is a game that they know the audience, the Switch audience, would love. So again, if it's the goal of keeping people engaged and feeling like there's still like cool stuff and life left in these next few months, like that would be a great game for them to bring, and then happy relationship with Capcom, like just get all like cozy up before bigger games come to Switch too, like Monster Hunter. Right. I don't know. So
I have no other third party games to discuss.
That's it for me too. I think it's gonna be pretty light on the third parties, honestly, because I think most of them have probably moved on to the next thing. So yeah. I have a few DLC things. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
So Pikmin 4, I think we'll be getting some DLC.
Oh.
Maybe some extra like little missions or something like that. They know that fan base is rabid for this game, so anything they can drop, I think, is cool for them. Maybe another Splatoon something for the winter. whether it's like a new, I don't know, a new event, a festival of some sort of holiday thing that maybe they can do.
But not like a buy this big DLC pack kind of thing.
Yeah, no, just maybe just like some sort of like a little fan celebration, you know, some sort of like
Okay.
holiday.
Smaller.
Okay. This is a bit of a stretch. I would like this, but would they do more levels for Super Mario Wonder? Like that was a big holiday game for them last year. I feel like you can eke some more life out of just any Mario game. And if you need to do that in the holiday to keep people, whether or not like maybe they didn't buy it yet, and this is like, oh, I'll buy it now that it has more stuff in it or whatever. They could do like another 2 worlds. I don't know, like something like that. I mean, they
now you're veering into the space of just too much stuff. There's never this much stuff in a Nintendo Direct. You're just listing things right now.
I just want
and then this,
things.
and then that, and then they'll have this.
Cute little.
It's always like, yeah, they might have like a handful of these things.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it. That's all I have for DLC.
All right. Metroid Prime 4. I want to talk about this. So why do you think there's zero chance of this?
I just don't think that they're ready to talk about this game. I think they are still priming the audience. Literally.
We need another 7 years.
We need so many more years of Prime. No pun
It's a game
intended.
of chicken between them and Silksong to see who can give an update first.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
ain't blinking.
Yeah, no one's blinking. You just got like the gun pointed at each other. But yeah, the arm cannon is pointed at you. I don't know. I just feel like they're just not gonna. They're just not gonna. And if anything, they're gonna just hold that back until Switch 2. That will be like the big game for the Nintendo fans for Switch 2. If they're going to release Mario Kart 9 for like everybody else, Metroid Prime will be like the love letter to Nintendo fans, core Nintendo fans. And that will be a big, tearful, joyful, that's going to be a hype moment. And they probably don't want to like jeopardize that hype moment in any way right now. Like, why now? It's too late. Even if you say something like, even if they say like one line, like this game is still in development, like why? Who cares?
It's too late for hype?
Well, it's too late for them to talk about it now. You might as well just wait, is my point.
What?
Yeah.
I differ on this feeling.
Okay.
I think this will be the final game. I think we see some footage. I think it gets called out as a 2025 date, no date given. Reconfirm releasing for Nintendo Switch, but it will eventually be a dual SKU game that releases day and date on the Switch 2. They don't have to say that now. They don't have to say that. I mean, they've been working on this game for so long. It's not like they knew from day one, oh, this is going to be a Switch 2 game, so we're making it to be a Switch 2 game. I think it's going to be a Switch game that on the Switch 2 can have some extra bells and whistles.
No.
And they've done this. They've done this every generation for a while now, having something that's hanging right on the edge that they release both ways. So
I don't know.
This feels like the game.
I feel like they made like a halfway decision where it's like, well, you know what? We've gone this far now, and we have not said anything, and I just feel like they're going to be like, well, might as well just hold it for Switch 2. Make it for Switch 2 now. Make it for Switch 2.
All right.
Make that be the title that people want to buy a Switch 2 for.
All right. So this is interesting that we have a pretty divergent.
We'll see who's right.
There's a fork in the road between Kit and Krysta here. I'm going to go so far as to say if this is not in the Nintendo Direct, I'm going to cut all my hair off. I'm going to go that far as to say that.
Can I pie you in the face?
Maybe you can cut some of it, but no, there's no pie involved.
Wait, I can cut the hair myself?
Maybe, yeah. That's as far as I'm going to go.
I'm not letting you cut my hair.
Well, you don't have to cut your hair. We're testing how confident you feel.
I feel very confident.
I'm not interested in cutting your hair.
You can do something else to me, but don't touch my hair.
All right, I'll get the pie, you get the scissors. There we go. Deal.
Oh my God.
Deal.
Oh my God, I can't believe that you think this. I can't believe it. Anyway.
You listed literally every game and series that Nintendo has. Like this will all be in it. And then when you get to Metroid, like, oh, you've gone too far now.
You have. You're
too rich for my blood.
You've gone over the edge. You've reached.
Oh gosh.
Cross the line now. Okay, so
All right.
in the no news category, Metroid Prime 4, number 1. Number 2, I don't think we'll hear a whisper of Pokemon Za. I think.
I didn't have that down at all. No.
I don't think we'll hear anything about that. I don't think we'll hear diddly about a new Donkey Kong game, 3D Donkey Kong. I don't think we're going to hear anything about that. I don't think we're going to hear anything about any sort of new 3D Mario. I don't think we're going to hear anything about that either. So don't y'all.
You don't have to list everything.
Don't get your hopes up.
Here you go again, listing things.
People, don't get your hopes up. I'm trying to manage your expectations.
And then the prevailing wisdom now is that this is happening in the second half of the month, so probably not this week, people seem to say.
We'll see. So it's Monday right now.
Gives us a little bit of a buffer. I mean, the Summer Game Fest stuff is still trickling, still kind of happening. People are still in LA. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. All right, I'm glad we did this now, so we can commit this bet to podcast form, where it shall live forever.
Yes.
And
the binding contract.
Yeah. That'll be an exciting final moment of the Direct on pins and needles as I get the pie out of the refrigerator.
Or the scissors out of the cabinet.
one is more threatening than others. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to cut you. Or the pie. I'm going to cut your hair. A big old chunk of hair. It's going to be fun.
Let's move on to some games we're playing. We're going to do something a little bit different with this because we got to play so many games at Summer Game Fest. These are not games that we own and are playing. These are games that we played at events.
Yes.
And one of the reasons that this podcast came out a day later than usual is because there were all sorts of embargoes that we had to follow at Summer Game Fest. But one game in particular, we pinned down and said, we need to change the podcast timing so that we can be sure that we can talk about our experience with Monster Hunter Wilds.
Yes, which was game of the show, I think, for both of us.
Easy winner. Game of the show.
Game of the show. We're saying it again, committing that to the concrete of this podcast. Game of the show, Monster Hunter Wilds, which we got a chance to see we didn't get to physically play it, but we did see an extended gameplay demo. Developers were in the room. We saw their hands on a controller. They were playing the game. And it was about, what would you say, 30 minutes or so?
30 minutes.
Of gameplay. And we came away with it just feeling super hyped for Monster Hunter Wilds. We were so impressed with what we saw. And I think we both had the feeling this is next gen. They took this franchise to the next generation with this game. They 100% accomplished that.
Yeah, and surprising that seeing it in action, they put out a couple trailers now, and I thought, oh, that looks cool. Yeah, the next Monster Hunter, I'm definitely interested in that. But, seeing the game in action was so much more impressive than what they had in those trailers. And you really got a sense for the scope and all the little tweaks and details that they put into this game that makes it feel different. And I think the name of the game, Monster Hunter Wilds, is very accurate because it feels like you becoming a master of this environment that you are in is as much a part of playing this game as it is becoming a master of these monsters. Right.
And they did a lot to really pay that off, because I got that same feeling too. They have so many things in the game that really just takes into account the environment you're in, takes into account what other things are happening around you that would happen in the wilderness. So they showed us this part where they started hunting this really big monster. And usually that's a pretty straightforward process. You go into an area, you go through some sort of loading screen, you get to the monster, you start to fight the monster runs away, you go to the next zone. But the way they showed us how you can bring down these monsters was so cool, because they were showing us things you can do in the environment where they ran the monster into a sandstorm and use the lightning to stun the monster, the lightning from the sandstorm. They would pull the monster into a herd of other monsters, and then the other monsters would attack it for you, or pull it into bramble so it slows down. So all these things where they utilize everything in the environment is like what a real hunter would do, I think, if you were facing a huge monster like that. And like the way that they, your experience fighting the monster could change every single time because the environment is changing around you. I think that makes it like feel so alive and so cool. I think we're both just like really blown away by that.
Yeah, it was just so seamless and it felt like this real like living world, whereas I feel like in some previous Monster Hunter games you were just kind of making a beeline to where the monster was, and it was just like, yeah, there's stuff around you, but it's not really playing as much of a part of what you're trying to do. So there were other things too, like you had that kind of grappling hook thing that you started to have in Monster Hunter Rise, and not only were you swinging around, but they were like hooking on to things in a cave and like yanking it down and dropping a big boulder on these monsters' heads. And yeah, the interaction of all the different monsters together was something that was really cool and exciting to see, and again felt very organic. Like, I think there have been some examples of you being able to do this in previous games, but this just felt like, again, truly next gen. And like, there are not really many games this generation on PlayStation, Xbox that feel truly next gen, but this really did. And just, you could just get the sense they've like refined so many things. Like the movement of the character felt really smooth. Like I would never really say before that like Monster Hunter was like had the slickest movement. It always felt a little bit wooden in some ways, but now it felt like you have real precise control and really can smoothly move around to where you want. Like there's another mount. At one point they called in bot hunters, which I got really excited for, because sometimes your
friend's not
multiplayer
available.
buddy's not always there.
Yeah,
but yeah, like just at the last second, like, oh, we're gonna call in some bots now who are gonna help us out. Like that got me really excited. So again, we only saw like one hunt, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a huge step ahead for this franchise.
it kind of gave me the Breath of the Wild feeling, honestly,
Ah,
where it's like the environment around you, just like when you're in the woods, it's alive. Like things that you're doing has a cause and effect, and it really felt like that sense. And that's really cool. Like not a lot of games can pull that off. Like if you can't pull it off, it feels like super disjointed, but it absolutely felt like you were just in this environment. You're using like all the different things to your advantage. You can approach it in so many different ways. Like, yeah, if you wanted to like hunt this monster in one particular way, like trapping it in like a sand whirlpool, like you can do that, but you don't have to. You can do it another way. You can think of another way to take down this monster. So yeah, the kind of sort of the player freedom that it gives you on how you take one of these down is like sort of did remind me of Breath of the Wild, how you can like use the environment to your advantage. And you were talking about the movement. I think the movement is super smooth too, but it still like retained that Monster Hunter DNA a little bit, where like you're fighting this like big giant scary thing, and like you're scared. Like it's not like it's an easy task for you. Like you're swinging a big sword, the sword feels heavy, if you're like running around the environment and a sand trap whirlpool appears in front of you and the monster's getting sucked in, you're gonna get sucked in too. Like there's a lot of like sort of that like feeling of this very like dynamic, where yeah, like you can get hurt just like the monster is getting hurt in this environment. And so the way that they have like attention to that was really really cool to see. And yeah, I think now we're both like, when is this game? Give it to me now, because it
yeah,
looks so good.
I mean, if they said next year, but like based on how much promotion they're doing recently, it feels like it might be sooner than later next year type of game, which would be great. When we were also at Capcom at that event, we played this other game, Kinitsugami Path of the Goddess.
Yeah.
Which I think we had both seen, and we're like, okay, what is that? And we played it, and it took us a while to figure out what it was, but once it finally clicked and once we finally understood, I think we were both pretty into this.
Yeah, I was playing, and I still feel a little bit like lost in terms of all the different things I could do. And yeah, it's like a very interesting like sort of combo of different gameplay elements. Like you're doing some like almost like tower defense, crowd control stuff. You're doing a lot of like character management, where you like give different characters different skills or different jobs to help you with the tower defense part of it. There's sort of a very like, you know, Japanese mythical legend, like almost like an okami kind of look to things. Obviously there's some kind of story that I wasn't really grasping at the time. Like, why am I helping out this goddess? Like, what's going on? But yeah, I as I was playing, I was kind of getting the hang of it, and it was making me very interested. But I still don't feel like I completely understand this game, even though I played it for like, you know, a pretty long period of time. So
yeah, the loop of the game, we should say, is like you're in this very distinct level that honestly was not that big. And you're playing this kind of like, you know, swordsman character who can run around and do, you know, action oriented moves. And you have to help this goddess kind of go down this path to reach this objective. But there's kind of like a real time passage of time where when things turn to nighttime, enemies will burst out and they will, you know, try and attack her and attack other things. So you have to deal with them. You can like recruit these other characters to fight on your behalf, and you can give them different character classes and reposition them. So there's a lot of strategy in that aspect. Like when we finally talked to somebody from Capcom, I was like, how'd you describe this? They said, yeah, it's kind of character action meets, you know, like strategy or tower defense. And tower defense is not a genre I super like, but just kind of the combination of all these things. And yeah, there is this very intriguing, like mystical old Japan, like visual layer, presentation layer to it all.
yeah.
That like there have been variations on that in games I've seen, like Otogi, which is another old FromSoft game I kind of reminded me of, but I can't say there's anything that's been quite like this. So, and it's also the kind of game that's like so weird that it's like rare to see a big studio like Capcom make a game like this even. So I'm just excited that this kind of game can still exist. It's coming out really soon. It comes out in about a month, and I think I just saw that it's going to be on Game Pass too. So
nice.
I feel like this is a soon to become a cult classic.
Yeah, it definitely has that feeling. Like I feel like people that really kind of love this art style / gameplay are going to really love this game. And I think you can go really deep on the strategy. I was not super smart enough to get it yet, but I can see the depth that's in this game that you can really get into as well. So yeah.
What else do you want to talk about of what we played?
Let's talk about one of our favorite indie games that we saw, which is Flock. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a great one.
We obviously saw games from, you know, bigger publishers like Capcom and stuff, but one of the cool things about the Summer Game Fest Playdays is that there is a really big spotlight on indie games, and we always somehow, like, I feel like we've never had a year where we didn't discover like a cool new indie game that we are excited about, and this year absolutely was that as well. I think the game that stood out to us is this game called Flock, where you're like riding this bird in this very like colorful,
dreamy,
ethereal environment. And we were joking around because we were like playing this game. It was like our last appointment of the day. We had a full day of appointments, and we were sitting there like playing this game, and it was like super relaxing. It was kind of like lulling our brains into this weird like dream state. Like I felt kind of weird, honestly. Like as I was playing, and afterwards, I was like trying to like blink away the colors because it was like in my head. I was like, "Whoa, what's happening?" But it's really cool. Like it was obviously beautiful to look at, but really interesting sort of gameplay where you're like identifying these weird little creatures and putting them in your little like, you know, like little critter book. There's some very funny characters that we were meeting along the way.
Good writing.
Very good writing. Very weird writing. Like some of the stuff was
it's
just
quirky.
Like, quirky humor. Yeah, no, it's great. It was really good, like really interesting dialogue and just like some weird stuff that I really loved.
It's another game that is impossible to categorize. What I was saying was Flower meets Pokemon Snap, and Flower because of just the movement of your character over these like hills and terrain, like and just the look of the terrain was very like chunky, textured plants, flowers, greenery. Gave me that feel. And then the Pokemon Snap part of it is like you are like collecting, cataloging all these different species of creatures. It's not on rails, but that did feel like a big part of the game was like hunting down all these variations of this subspecies and getting all of those in your notebook. And then maybe just throw in a little dusting of Katamari just for the, bizarre presentation and vibe of it all. But it was a very appealing combination.
Cool. Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah.
I want to play more of it. Like I'm still thinking about it, honestly.
Yeah, a theme of that we came to this conclusion pretty fast is like there's not a lot of pick up and play games out there anymore. Like even games that on the surface look simple have a lot of different systems in play, and like we spent a lot of times in games like playing tutorials or getting coached up on how to do this or that, and
or listening to like a long dialogue. A lot of it's like talking at you. Yeah.
Right, it's a demo situation, so it's hard to completely like lock in on the experience. But that was a thought that we both had. Was like, yeah, the pick up and play game is kind of dead in some ways.
I hope that there is continued thought around how to put together a compelling demo, because it is really important. Like that first experience you have, you also have to keep in mind the environment that people are playing in. Like, it's really distracting, honestly, in that environment. Even if you have headphones on, people are like walking around you. There's people, recording different things. People are coming up to talk to you. You also have a person that is demoing the game, trying to talk to you. So yeah, like having that sort of not pick up and play experience, like I sometimes felt a little intimidated, honestly. Like I don't want to look stupid playing this game, like with all these people around. Like I feel a little self-conscious almost. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting like takeaway from all the games we were playing, where we're sort of having that sense like, oh, I learn a lot in a very short amount of time and really come to a impression about this game in like the 25 minutes that I have to play it,
Yeah. Maybe the last game we can talk about, and there's so much more in our vlog that you should check out, is Fear the Spotlight, which is one of the games from Bloomhouse that got announced in the Summer Game Fest stream. And I saw this getting described as like a young adult Silent Hill, like original Silent Hill on PlayStation 1, which now that I've seen it and played it, I was like, yeah, I could see that being kind of what they're going for. And I didn't realize this in the moment, but I was reading up on it a bit after I played it. They are talking up the fact that this game does not have jump scares, which is perfect for me.
Oh,
because I'm scared.
That. No, I'm very scared. I had to leave halfway because I was scared. I left to go see a cozy game because I was like, I'm scared. I want to go.
Yeah, it's so interesting how this has become like an emergent genre now, like the PS1 like styled horror game, because we just had Crow Country that came out a few weeks ago, and I'm glad that game came out first, because that could have gotten overshadowed if some of these bigger companies were making a push. But now we have multiple games in this space, and it's definitely a vibe, and there's a lot to be said for that presentation and those technological limitations making things feel spooky, claustrophobic in ways that like ultimate graphical fidelity does not. So I am not someone to play horror games, but I left pretty intrigued by this, and the fact that there are no jump scares makes me more intrigued. So I kind of think I want to play this when it comes out, because it did a good job of just like building the layers of ominousness, of foreboding, that felt very well earned.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I'm glad there's no jump scares, because I don't do well with that either. It also doesn't seem like there's going to be like a lot of gore, which I also get turned off by because of the graphic style choice. You just with that polygon PS1 style, you probably can't have like realistic like gore, kind of stuff. So that makes me a little bit more, I think, capable of playing a game like this, because usually I'm too scared and too grossed out to play a game like this. And the story is very intriguing, and it has like that kind of like novel, or like, Blumhouse very cinematic. Obviously, everything is based on sort of movie type style, and I really like that too. So yeah, really cool, very cool to check that out.
Last thing I'll say before we move on, we did play Sonic X Shadow Generations. and right on the screen it said 3 hedgehogs. And I sat and thought about that for a moment, and I had to turn to the nice person from Sega and said, "Can you please explain to me who the 3 hedgehogs are? Because I see Sonic and I see Shadow, and where's the third one?" And they explained, well, there's, I forget what they called it. It's like classic Sonic and modern Sonic, or like baby Sonic and adult Sonic. I was like, that's the same one.
Young Link and regular Link. 2 Links. You see? Do you see?
Okay. I just can't go to some sort of Sonic thing, some sort of a Sega thing without causing a scene, it seems. Not causing a stir. I'm just asking questions.
They were not like as annoyed with you than I thought they would be. I try to like make myself scarce because I don't want to be associated.
Again, I don't know how we got this appointment
with you. They invited us. It must be me, honestly. I'm such a sweet, nice person. They want to see me. I have to say too that we actually have like good friends that we used to work with, working at Sonic at Sega now. So you have to be nice to them, please. Don't be so contrarian.
It's a mere clarification. Can you please tell me who the 3 hedgehogs are? Because I'd like to know.
You were also
for the sanctity.
What is the name of this game? Is it Sonic Cross Shadow Cross Generation?
That's a very respectful question for me to ask, because you never know when you see a big X there. Sometimes it's X, sometimes it's cross. I want to know. I want to represent this game
Sharp
to
Sonic.
its fullest. Good segment in the vlog for that. Let's move on. And again, lots of other games that we played that you can see in that vlog. Let's move on to news. And this is going to be a big breakdown of Xbox Game Showcase and Summer Game Fest. Is there one that you would like to start with?
Let's do the Xbox stuff, because that's big.
Yes. There's so much stuff in here, and we were in the room as it was happening. Well, I guess for starters, since everybody knows, what was in it, like grading this event.
Yeah,
I think you said you
B+ was my grade. I gave it a pretty high score, and I was very critical because we both, in the weeks leading up to announcement season, we were like, Xbox needs to do a thing. They have very specific to-dos, checklist of things that they have to put in the showcase to make us feel good about the future of Xbox. And largely, I feel like they checked off the list. And so I thought it was a very strong, really fun showcase for Xbox, and I was feeling pretty good when I left the theater.
Yeah, in the moment, I think I said B. I think I want to revise that up to a B+ as well, because there were a lot of games in there. They did learn their lessons from last year, where there was so much CG, and it was hard to tell, like, what does this game actually look like? What is it actually going to play like? They answered a lot more of those questions. And, in hindsight, looking back at I just jotted down like the biggest announcements, and there's a dozen things here that were pretty big and pretty impactful and pretty cool. I think the general feeling and vibe around Xbox has been very, very bad leading up to this, but this does feel like they sort of turned it around. I saw some people pointing out like, oh, well, they didn't address the layoffs in this, or it didn't come up. I guess Phil did that interview with IGN later, but I never expected them to address that here. This is not the place for that.
Right. This is the place for them. They have a goal here too. All of these companies have goals with these showcases, and it's to like get back people's trust and excitement for Xbox in term of like they have games coming that you can play. So they really did hammer you with those messages. Like they hammered you with messages around day one on Game Pass. They hammered you with messages about games coming out this year, which people were complaining about, myself included. Like, I don't need to see a CG trailer for a game coming out late 2025. Like, what can I play in the next 2 months? Like, tell me. And they did. They truly did. And they had lots of variety, different size games, different scope of games, different types of games. With timing that made sense for later this year and into, hopefully the earlier parts of 2025. And yeah, seeing more gameplay so we know actually what this game plays like. Like those are all things on that list that they needed to address. And again, I think they really did. And there's a lot of games in here that I'm personally really excited about. So yeah, I feel better overall.
The reason I didn't go into the A range, and a lot of people are saying like, oh, this is the best one they've done in 10 years, and like really pulling out the accolades, is like they do need to earn back some of that trust of the stuff that they talked about that is further out, that it's not going to be this interminable wait for the next update on these games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not ready to fully believe and buy in to some of those things. Like I was very focused.
Yeah.
I was very focused on the things that are like, all right, within the next year, like what are we going to have? And they did, you know, they did kind of lay out some really good looking games for this year. And 2025, you know, if those games stick, that's a big if. Like 2025 could be really stacked. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many more years this generation has in it, but, you know, at least they could have one, you know, really, really good year. That would be a good way to, you know, roll it over into the next thing. What would you say are like your top 3 things that you want to talk about out of this?
So I think the sort of the games that I'm excited about for this year, obviously you and I have been talking about Indiana Jones, and we have like sort of differing opinions on that. Like I'm pretty like sold on the fact that it's going to be one of those more you know, cutscene heavy games where it's almost like you're playing a movie, and you have maybe like a QTE event every like 5 minutes or something like that, and then you get a lot of like movie style cutscenes like an Uncharted, and I'm okay with that. You seem to be not as okay with that.
I strongly disagree. I strongly disagree
with
that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this was one that we really throughout the day we kept like going back to this.
Yeah,
and
you
butting
really
heads
annoyed me, and I'm still kind of annoyed with you right now. So anyways,
I'm gonna do it again. This is a game that is coming out this year, and basically what they showed in this showcase was a cutscene. And that feels to me like a great opportunity to show people like, hey, we have a great developer in Machine Games on this game. Look at this fun Indiana Jones gameplay that you can do that feels unique and distinct. And instead, you know, we got the fake Harrison Ford face, you know, doing stuff. And it's like, is this really the best chunk of the game to be showing here? I don't think it is.
Okay.
And you keep saying it's going to be one of those games, and I don't know what that means. Indiana Jones movies exist. If I wanted an Indiana Jones movie, I would go watch one of those. I want an Indiana Jones video game, so show me the video game.
You're playing the movie. So it's like you're going to get a lot of like iconic Indiana Jones cutscenes. Like the big
Can
ball.
I see it? This is not cutscenes the game. This is a video game.
It's gonna be.
I want to see it.
It's going to be cutscenes the game.
I disagree.
Fine.
And
I think this was little whip. What else do you want to know? You use your little whip.
I think this was a misfire.
You punch the Nazis. You have a little pew pew like your little pistol. Like what else do you need to know?
Yeah, can I see that? Can I see that?
Do you need to?
Can I see that?
Do you not know what that's like? Or is that just entirely
secondary to some cutscene with the fake Harrison Ford?
It's probably going to be secondary to some cutscene because you know what it looks like to punch somebody in first person. You know what it looks like
I don't
shoot somebody in first person. You've seen it like a million thousand times.
I don't.
Anyways, Life is Strange Double Exposure. Very excited about that. I know you're not a Life is Strange person. I'm a Max.
Oh, I haven't played the series at all.
I love these games. And I love these games.
I didn't realize like, oh, Life is Strange is about that kind of stuff. Oh, I didn't realize that.
There is a character in there that has like the supernatural powers that they're bringing back for this game. But you should play these games. Some of them are on Switch. They're really, really good. I'm just excited for another Life is Strange game for sure. And this one looks cool.
Yeah.
The supernatural part of it looks really fun. So I'm excited about that. Some of the 2025 games, I think the new Doom game looks pretty awesome.
The Dark Ages.
I love the idea of like a fantasy / Doom crossover. Like you get a chainsaw and a shield and a chainsaw on your spear. Cool. It's awesome. And then you get like the rock opera. Like I'm in. I'm so in. So that looks pretty cool.
This was the perfect game to start the showcase with because it just like was so high energy. Like they knew like everybody's gonna love this. We're gonna get this off on the right foot, and it looked great.
People were hyped.
No cutscenes here. A lot of gameplay.
There's some cutscenes.
And yes, the room was like super hyped.
Yeah.
This is definitely like within my top 2 or 3 things of the whole show.
Dragon Age is my other one that I was pretty excited for.
Oh, really?
Veilguard. Yeah. I was like a little surprised because the art style is so different for this one. It almost looks a little bit more like cartoon fantasy. And I don't know if that means the vibe of it is a little bit less serious, but I'm kind of here for it. Like I do like that more like humorous approach to some of these fantasy games. Like sometimes I do like the dark fantasy, like the Elden Ring, the real like weird lore that you can never figure out and this very, very serious tone. But sometimes it's nice to have fantasy with like a bit more of a lighthearted tone as well. So
Yeah, I honestly didn't realize that this was Dragon Age until like halfway into the trailer.
Oh, really?
Because it looks so different. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, BioWare's got to be itching over, how popular Baldur's Gate has been, because that's a game that series that they started, and they're like, oh, we got to get back in on this action. So I wonder, that this has obviously been in development for a long time, but it's like, are there any like little things that they're taking from that, or
yeah.
I just wonder like what BioWare's got left in it, but so far all the impressions on this seem to be very good.
Yeah, game that we were both like itching for any kind of gameplay was Fable, which did get a little tiny
we saw some. We did
did
see some.
We did.
Yes.
We saw some walking around. We saw like a little bit of a sword. I was like, okay.
I was satisfied. I was satisfied with what we saw of this.
Yeah,
we got a date, 2025. It also came out, this being co-developed by Eidos Montreal. So I don't know what happened that needed them to bring them in, but I'm glad that it seems to be a bit more under control than maybe it had been. And yes, I really love the Fable series, and I think they've got the tone pretty right. Nobody said Chicken Chaser, though. Maybe there's still time for that.
Chicken Chaser.
I like this a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the game that we bonded over when you first started at Nintendo. Yeah. So I think it's very special, and I want this one to be really good, because I've missed a good Fable game, They ended the show with Gears of War E-Day, which again, perfect. I think they did a great job with the perfect opener and the perfect closer. That was well done in terms of like just pacing out the show. Long showcase. So it's good to, get people off to a good start and off to a good end. And this one was a CG only trailer. Obviously, this game is definitely further out, as you were saying, but kind of a cool prologue approach to Gears of War. Very emotional. I think people started crying in the audience.
Really? You saw somebody crying?
Someone told me that they cried. I was like, oh.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Really? Okay. Was it the song?
It's the Mad World song.
Was it
the
Mad
song.
World? You gotta
I think it was.
Play the slowest version of Mad World while you have like an emotional like beatdown of an orc. Yeah. And then your best friend saves your life. Like, yes, okay.
Yeah. This is the game where I need to manage my excitement, because I really, really like those first 3 Gears of War games, and for them to kind of be going back to that era of the story and talk about how it began. They're like, the Gears of War lore is kind of interesting, actually, and I didn't realize this as I was watching the trailer, but it is those, Marcus and Dom, those 2 main characters, because it's like, there's a lot of big guys in do-rags in this series. I didn't realize those were those big dudes in do-rags. So that's cool. But again, it's like, is this even going to be out on this hardware generation? I am not going to fall into the trap of getting super hyped about this now. Yeah. There was no date given. This could be a long wait. And that's fine. I'm just not going to devote so much energy to getting worked up about this now.
Yeah. I'm glad they showed it. But
I was excited for this.
Yeah, I was really happy they showed it, because it did seem like it was setting this new one up for like a ton of success. Like, it's a lot of fan service, obviously, with like, this idea of going back to the beginning and with these characters that people love. And yeah, I think they're like, if they're gonna like kind of do a big like reveal, like they did it perfectly for this game. So,
and those devs did some interviews. They were saying all the right things. But yeah, it's just like what I don't know how I should feel about this, given where this probably is in development. There's other things I could probably put my attention into.
Yeah.
You didn't say Microsoft Flight Simulator? Your dream of being a long haul commercial pilot?
Answer the call of the skies. Won't you answer the call? You can be a crop duster Not that way. You have so many options. I actually have that game and the original micro or the whatever the last Microsoft.
It's cool. It's cool.
I have the little wheel too, like the airplane wheel. It's cool. It's fun. I like it.
Totally. South of Midnight, I think, was another one that we both thought just had like a cool like look to it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the gameplay they showed looked pretty like standard, but that could be one where just like the look of it is enough to like hook me in.
I liked the movement though. Like it had like sort of a paraglider situation where it's like like Link.
Yeah.
There seems to be some supernatural something happening there. But yeah, the also the just the environment and like some sort of game like in that sort of deep south, like I'm guessing it's like Creole type of setting.
Down on the bayou.
I love it. Give me the beignets. Give me the paraglider. I'm here. I'm here for the gumbo. I'm here for all of it.
So yeah, that was the Xbox Game Showcase, and I think they've been saying like on the Xbox podcast they're going to be doing some follow-up things. So like they just announced Avowed. They did a whole episode on Avowed, and they said that's coming out on November 12th. So it sounds like they've got some other little smaller news things that they'll be getting out throughout the week.
Good for them.
Summer Game Fest. Again, famously watched by you in a moving car, not by me.
Great. Yeah.
10 and 2 at all times.
It made the 2 hours go by fast instead of watching it like glued to my computer, which can be boring. This was not as strong of a show. I think, again, the polls were out at the end of these showcases. As usual, there's always a letter grade.
Jeff's polls, yes.
The polls. The Xbox showcase poll was like predominantly A. Okay, people loved it. The Summer Game Fest poll was like 48% D. So those are the differences of the two showcases. Yeah, this one kind of not a lot of exciting reveals. Kind of had like some drag moments, but the pacing just felt really, really slow. Yeah, but there was definitely a couple of things in there that was cool. I think we were both like, Lego Horizon coming to Switch, like that's interesting, because obviously not a PlayStation IP coming to Switch, a PlayStation
and not
IP,
to Xbox,
right? And then also doing something a bit more like lighthearted and just a little bit more happy with PlayStation IP is always good. Like we were talking about Astrobot and how that's like feels very Nintendo-y, very like Mario Odyssey with this kind of more joyful approach. We're kind of getting that with Lego Horizon where Aloy is like cracking jokes and it's all about the world coming to an end. A nice little just differentiator from your typical PlayStation games. So
yeah, it's interesting to see how quickly like this kind of new side of Sony has emerged. That's a bit more playful. That's a bit more for everybody, and I think it's really what they needed because that whole kind of genre that they helped pioneer of like this super ultra high end narrative driven third person game. I think we all just collectively needed a breather from that. So these feel like really good games. They look good, but it's also like giving you good feelings of what PlayStation used to do more regularly. And I hope they will continue to do and just have a bit more balance with their portfolio than what they've had so far this generation. It's just been so far to that one end of that same kind of game that this just feels like real fresh air.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't want to cry. You want to play a video game and like maybe smile a little bit. You don't want to go into a dark corner and cry because you play The Last of Us and you can't recover. Like, I mean, seriously, we need balance in our lives. So it's good that they're doing that a little bit more. Another like fun crossover.
We got
go ahead.
Yes. I was going to say, we got the Alan Wake 2 DLC, and I wanted to ask, in the 7 hours that you had between flights, did you play this? Did you play this yet?
I 100%ed it in the 6. No, I downloaded it. I'm gonna go home and play it.
Okay.
Really excited about this. It's like very like Twilight Zone-ish, and they're bringing back some of the side but important characters from Alan Wake 2. I'm really excited about Rose, which is like the lady that works at the cafe, and she has a really interesting like. She actually had like a very humorous story take in Alan Wake 2 that I really appreciated because I was very scared, and Rose was a bit of like a breather. Like she has just a funny personality. So kind of excited to play like a whole episode as her. And they brought back some of the other characters as well. So this is great. I love this game when I played it last year, and yeah, I'm definitely going to be playing the DLC.
Civilization 7 was the big 2K game that was rumored. So not Borderlands, which was kind of the big rumor leading up to that, but also not Carnival Games. So I thought that was kind of a good surprise and a obviously a big series coming back. People seem very hyped for this Power Rangers game.
I'm hyped for the Power Rangers.
Our good friends at Digital Eclipse are making this Rita's Rewind.
Yes, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Rita's Rewind. That's the full name. It's a little bit of a mouthful. But yeah, this is very much in the vein of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games that they did, which were excellent. I think this one is 5-player multiplayer, which is super cool. Yes,
that's
5.
An interesting number.
I know, it's not 4.
Okay.
It's 5. I was surprised when I heard that too. I was like, what? Obviously, this is one of those like nostalgic franchises for people like us, people our age that grew up watching and pretending to be Power Rangers. I think everybody our age has like definitely played with their friends and pretended to be a Power Ranger. So, yeah, like I want to play this game. I'm excited about it.
It's good to see, a kind of a smaller in scope game like really break out like that. Because I think that was like the worry, going into Summer Game Fest was the vibe. It was like, oh, this is just going to be like the AAA bloat show. So that a game like that can stand out is good, I think. We also got, Capcom was hyping up this show. We famously got this card in the mail. We seem to be the only person who got this card. That's a tune in for the multiple announcements. Maybe what they had did not meet people's expectations. So they had the Monster Hunter developer there, and they showed a new trailer. They also had these crossover characters for Street Fighter 6 from Fatal Fury, Terry Bogard, and Mai, which was kind of an interesting, really one of the first times for Street Fighter to be doing guest characters. Mm-hmm. And there has been, Capcom versus SNK games before, but this was new and notable because there's a new Fatal Fury game coming too.
That we played at Summer Game Fest.
Right.
Yeah.
Played very badly, I should say.
I played great. I beat you every time. Right?
There's simple controls.
Facts.
You're just hitting that win button
but
again and again.
The fact is that I beat you every time. That's fact.
Okay. Fine.
Terry Bogard, I cannot escape him. Somehow.
You're emotionally scarred by Terry Bogard.
I'm emotionally scarred when he's everywhere. Like literally everywhere. I'm like, oh, you again? Okay, great. But yeah, I think it wasn't the best, most exciting show, but we got a couple of things, and there was some interesting stuff like here and there, but yeah, glad that we didn't like try to make it to LA for it, because I don't think we would have really gotten too much more out of it,
In the kind of 24-ish hours leading up to the show, there was this sort of like black cloud hanging over it because there was this news story that was sharing that the sponsored segments for Summer Game Fest were rather expensive and cost $250,000 for 1 minute, $350,000 for 1.5, all the way up to $550,000 for 2.5 minutes. That chicken game that happened at the very end of the show. And it was interesting to see people reacting to this information, because I think we saw it, and for us it was like, oh yeah, like we know that there are editorial spots and sponsored spots, But I think people started to go down a path of like, wait, is everything in Summer Game Fest a paid placement? Like, obviously that would freeze out smaller companies. Like, not everybody can afford that. And it was just kind of a weird-ish conversation happening for those 24 hours leading up to the show.
Yeah, I was really surprised by just people's lack of understanding on how one of these shows works, actually, because it was pretty obvious to us. Obviously, like when we were working at Nintendo, we worked very closely with Jeff on a number of things, and Nintendo was editorial. So Nintendo did not pay for placement at like TGAs when we did those big, Joker reveals, for example. Like we did not pay him money to do that. There are companies that are able to give Jeff content, editorial content that is in the show. But just like any sort of big production, there's also an ad that needs to run to pay for someone putting on a show of that scope. And the pricing here is for like those ads. But you brought up a good point, which is the sort of maybe the need for more transparency around what is an ad and what is editorial.
Absolutely, because some of these are very clearly commercials, like the aforementioned chicken thing that happened at the end of the show. But a lot of them are just trailers. And I do think it's important for people to know what was chosen, on its merits for that editorial placement that doesn't cost anything. And then what is, a sponsored segment where money has changed hands. And Jeff's in kind of, this unique place where he doesn't have to do that. A lot of times, when you're watching something on YouTube, like you really have to go out of your way to clarify what is and isn't sponsored. But I think it would be in his best interest to be a bit more clear about that, just so people understand like the nature of how and why and what is in the show for different reasons. We've worked with Jeff on all sorts of things. Like, I do think he is taking that into account with those editorial spots and looking for, games from all sorts of teams. And, I think he smartly called that out in his monologue of like, hey, there are people making amazing games with small teams, games made by a single person. He obviously, didn't reshuffle the entire show based on this reaction. But I think he did want to point that out at the top just to show that, like, yeah, I'm doing what I can to show the full range of what the industry has to offer. So there's always some big takeaway coming out of one of these Jeff shows. And I think for him, this is the big one for this year. Like, nobody was getting played off. No developer was getting played off. Take a seat, wrap it up. But this question about how much of this is paid placement and how do you pick things editorially, I think that's a to-do for him looking forward to the Game Awards, which is, again, approached in a very similar way.
Yeah, exactly. I trust him to do that work and hopefully get better about this. Again, it was obvious to us because we were once, working on the other side of this, but I can see from like just a pure viewer perspective how that could be a very confusing thing. And make you question like why certain things are in it and whether or not you should trust it. So that's good for people to like, think about that and make sure that things that are being presented to them, they like question that and make sure that it's not being fed to them because this person paid their way in. But I do trust that Jeff will make the necessary changes to be more transparent and communicate that a bit better in the future.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our Q&A segment, and we get every question from our wonderful Patreon community. If you would like to support us and get some great early access and exclusive content and a lot of other fun stuff being part of a great community, you can look us up at patreon.com/Kit First question today is from Cerulean Dragon, and this one has a great visual component to it. Hey, Kit and Krysta, a friend and I were talking about Nintendo's merch in Japan and the US. While it's better than it used to be, it's far from equal. Japan gets stuff like cool rugs, cute bags shaped like the Zelda bomb bag, and earrings. Meanwhile, the West tends to get stuff like key art slapped on a hat or a logo on a t-shirt instead of the more unique stuff. Why is that? Does it come down to cost, something legal, or something else? Any insight is appreciated.
I hate that we get the lame stuff. We always complained about
Yeah.
that too. Japan would always like unveil their cool collections. There is some weird perception though when we were at Nintendo and this would come up because we would share that feedback too. Like, can we get some cool stuff? That like, oh, the US consumer, they don't like this. They don't want the cookie jar. They want a t-shirt with a logo on it. That's what they're going to buy. I'm like, do you really think that that's what people want? This is like a cultural divide of what they perceive people want versus what people actually want. I think that education is continuing because we are starting to see some stuff at the Nintendo store in New York. And if they open that San Francisco store and it only has logos on hats, I'm going to be mad. They better bring me some earrings. But yeah, I do think there is like some kind of weird perception that Japan has with physical product where they understand their market, but they don't really understand the US market.
Yeah, I agree. It's mostly cultural where, in Japan, you'll hear about how not just Nintendo, but video games overall are really ingrained in the culture for people of all ages. And that's why when they have a show like Nintendo Live, it is really made for every generation and they want different generations to come and they program the show that way. Whereas the feeling is the US is the land of the hardcore gamer, sometimes in a bit of a stereotypical sense. And they're not going to be interested in some of these more kind of like lifestyle-y items. Like they want to display their pride for their favorite franchise in the most obvious way. And I agree that that's a bit of a misread on the situation, especially since Nintendo has had so many iconic cultural moments over the years. And now in the entertainment age of Nintendo is going down that path even more and more. But it seems like that kind of change is a little bit slow to happen. And I don't think it's purely the Japan side that's to blame, saying like, yeah, you can't do this stuff in the US. I do think there's parts of people in the US that are just like, this is what people who come to these stores want and expect. So it is slow progress. I don't think they will ever go as far as Japan where you're getting like an oven mitt like you can in the Japan store. But I think there's gotta be some movement away from this stuff because some of it's tacky.
It's very tacky.
Some of it's not cool.
It took a long time, and this is like a shameful thing to say, but it took a long time for them to even have women's sizes at an employee store. I'm not kidding. Like we used to have to go to events and they would give us uniforms, like staff shirts to wear. And there would not be like any sizing options for anybody that's not just like an 18 to 35-year-old male. So yeah, there is a perception of who is shopping at these stores and what they want, and I think that perception is wrong. Obviously, there's lots of different people who love video games, love Nintendo, and want to share their love in different ways. But it's taken a long time for them to come around to that.
Once again, our friends in Europe are saying they both look cool. I'd like any of that. They don't have a store.
Our friends in Europe are on bank holiday, so they're not saying anything.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Moving on. Jeffrey Hernandez says, hi, Kit and Krysta. Can you tell us any stories or tidbits about one-on-ones with Mr. Iwata? And we got asked this at Summer Game Fest of somebody saying, can you tell us what some of your interactions were like with not only Mr. Iwata, but also Mr. Furukawa? So I want to share that kind of story here, which was, we've talked about how Mr. Iwata was constantly traveling around the world. And sometimes it was just him, but more often than not, like he had people traveling with him. And so often Mr. Furukawa was traveling with him as part of this party. And he was sitting in on every one of Mr. Iwata's meetings. And a lot of the time he was just sort of a silent observer. And we really had to ask some follow-up questions of like, Mr. Furukawa is always with you. Why is that? What exactly does he do? Is there something that we should do to get him more engaged in these meetings? And, we came to understand that, he was definitely an up and comer on the business side, and somebody that Mr. Iwata really had sort of a long-term vision for, like really saw the potential for him as a leader. So again, I think that speaks to his very long-term outlook on things and being able to think ahead. And I don't know if he necessarily knew that he would be the successor to take over Nintendo, but I think he definitely saw that as a potential scenario and wanted him to get exposed to the same experiences that Mr. Iwata was having and get to know all the different people in the different regions and what they were all like and what they all did. And that definitely paid off. Once he went into that seat, there was not this long process of, nice to meet you, I'm Mr. Furukawa. It was like, yeah, cool, we know this guy and he knows us, so we can get to work.
Yeah, that's very true. I think Mr. Iwata is very much a lead by example kind of person. We talked so much about how he really walked the walk, and when he told us, these are the things I believe in, this is my philosophy, I truly live by my philosophy, you really trusted him because he was definitely like putting action to his words. And I think that is the way that he sort of was looking at, potential proteges or potential successors to him, like bringing them along, like literally and physically bringing them along and making them sit in a meeting and hear it for themselves. Like that is very much Mr. Iwata's MO. And he did that with people that he was working closely with us. And I always appreciated that. I thought that was very much like a thing that I respected from Mr. Iwata.
Kyle Gamer's next. Whenever the Switch 2 comes out, would you like to see NSO again, or would you rather have Virtual Console be a thing?
Oh boy, I don't think Virtual Console is ever going to be a thing. So I have resigned myself to NSO. I hope they continue iterating on it though and making it a bit better. We talk a lot about transparency of the schedule of when things are coming, and how are you deciding that would be nice. Just more information about when and how I can play these games. Do I need to buy it 4 more times before I can play it again? What is the deal? If they can just keep improving on it, I don't rock the boat. Don't just take all that away and then have to make me rebuy the thing again because you went back to Virtual Console. I think that would be a bad move.
Yeah, it's popular to, joke about NSO, but I do enjoy the experience of playing those games on the Switch with the NSO service. It's very fast to go from game to game. Stuff like the save states is really nice. There are some options with how it can get presented. Having I can't say I've played a lot of those games online because it's so restrictive, just down to friends, but I appreciate that they put the thought into it. So I certainly wouldn't be upset if they just continued with that. And I imagine they will, but if a Virtual Console approach would get more games out there, then I would also be happy with that. That's my big beef, is there were so many games that were on Virtual Console that are not on NSO now, and you just don't know why. And, maybe it's if you're a third party, maybe it's the fact that for every unit sold, I'm making X amount of money is a more compelling way to approach it versus whatever business terms Nintendo is putting out there for third parties now. That's something we just don't know, is how is the business structure of these two things different? I definitely don't want to have to rebuy games again and again and again, but if this was the last hurrah and they could say yeah, we're going to carry this stuff over and you just got to buy it one more time, I'm enough of a sucker to do it.
I don't trust them for a
I'm not
second.
too proud to do that.
Oh my God, They're going to totally do it. I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. They're going to make you rebuy it again and again and again and again and again until you die. I hate it.
Whatever gets us the games. That's my philosophy.
I hate it.
Fine. Last question is from Tuskoob. Hi, Kit and Krista. Now that we are halfway through the year, what are your current Game of the Year 2024 contenders? Are there any upcoming releases you're anticipating that might crack the list as well? Thank you. It's true. We are right about halfway through the year. Can you believe it?
No, it's scary. Gosh, the game to beat for me is still Yakuza, game I played in January of this year. I still think about it a lot, honestly. That is still the game to beat this year, I think. I'm really glad that we got a chance doing these wonderful spoiler casts, that we were able to replay some older games as well. Obviously, we replayed Chrono Trigger, which is a game we both played but haven't played for a long time. We also, and then that like shifted my overall best game of all time list, because I had replayed Chrono Trigger and I was like, oh man, where does this slot in now? And then I played for the first time Metal Gear, which is something that was like new to me. So a lot of these older games are kind of getting more of my mind share because I was able to play them again this year. But I think Yakuza is still my game to beat so far.
It's an interesting year because so much of our time got capitalized by those two really long games, Yakuza and Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And I think those two are, locks to be on the list. I think I liked Yakuza more. I liked it more then, and even with the hindsight, I like it more. Do not sleep on mini shoot adventures.
Oh, mini shoot.
Do not.
Your precious baby.
Sleep on mini shoot at your own peril. That's going to be on the list, and it could be higher than you think. Okay. So just get ready for that.
Yeah, okay. And then this month we have Elden Ring, the DLC is coming, so I'm excited about that. We still have to finish Paper Mario. That's going to be on somebody's list somewhere, I think. And who knows, after this direct, what other games are coming and it's going to be in the sort of the back half of the year. Maybe there's another one that might surprise us, but yeah, we're doing pretty
Indiana
good.
Jones, the game, the movie. We're flipping it around. Top. It's just a 10-hour cutscene.
Yeah, 30-hour cutscene actually.
Yeah. Perfect. I haven't really sat down, and that's something we usually do once we get like closer to the holidays, of like mapping out every week that remains of like, now I'm playing this, to make sure that we play everything that we need to. Mm-hmm. I have not yet reached that point of desperation.
Yeah, last year was just
do that.
The schedule got a little cuckoo last year, and we had to like do some real Tetrising of the schedule. I think hopefully we're a little bit better off this year. Oh, Assassin's Creed, obviously coming out in the holiday time too.
Yeah.
That's going to probably be in the list somewhere. That's what I'm looking forward to at least. Yeah, so still more games to come, but we already played some great games this year, so I think we're doing pretty good.
All right, them's the questions. Thanks to everybody who sent one in.
Yeah. Should we shout out some of our wonderful Patreon community members?
We should, and I'm realizing this is the first time we're shouting out Final Boss Aaron Hash outside of the studio. I think I should attach his photo somewhere in my home so that he can just endure and live on with me wherever I go.
You should put up his photo in your house. I should just travel with a small picture.
You put it in my wallet.
Yeah, like a locket, but it has like Aaron Hash's picture in it.
I keep that thing on me, and it's a picture of Aaron Hash.
Close to my heart. It's close to my heart. But he is our final boss. There can only be one, and it's Aaron, and we love him. And I will put his picture here on the screen so you can see. Okay, superstars. Here we go. Ben Eichhorn.
Maru Mayhem.
Eigenverse.
Kiss My Flapjack.
Mike Chin.
Roy Eschke.
Switching it up, _
VGM Life.
Link, the hero of Winds.
Angela Bycroft and her pig Molly.
Thomas O'Rourke.
Cal LaBeouf.
Roberto Nieves.
Frederick Ulf Conradson.
Andrew Uhas.
Chili.
Bruce Dash.
Simon.
Chris Shuri.
And Master Discord.
Now, I realize that when we record remotely, sometimes there could be like a little bit of a lag between the names.
Yeah, there is.
So we should do the One Up Club a little differently, and you read like half, and I'll read half. Yes?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Where I'm going to stop, you don't know.
You stop. I'll try to follow along. Here we go. One Up Club. All right.
Aaron Burgundy, Ale Alejandro, Archimedes, Astrodev, Awesome46, Bad Moon Horizon, Benji B, Bookem Dano, Bookishly Fab, Brandon Kavapel, Brooke Obscura, Brovac Novak, Called the Space Cowboy, Cameron, Chadir, Chelly Squirrel, Chris Cube, Christopher Lay, Captain Alex, Crimcat, Cristobal, Dachshund, Doinko, Elite Peach, Espars 50, Everything is Awful, Fart Priest 69, Fairbound, Fernie and Jess Forever, Fox Deploy, Garth the Wolf, Gartooth, Guilty Phoenix 42, Heroic, Iris Marin, Jay Rando, Jeffrey Hernandez, Jesse Hernandez, Jonathan Rowe, Jordan Collette, Jordan Hemmerly, Joshua Clements, Juji Fruit, Justin Lemminger, Kawa 2796, Keith Kwan, Kevin Delane, Kilo Kibo, Chris Dorati Elf, Christopia Party With Me, Kyle Gamer Barry Rookie, Kyle Kretzer, Lazy Cat for Coffee, Lex, Lit, Lynn, Macho Potato, Mad Dog 5981, Magnificent Easy G and Callie Marie, Marky Man 64, Mario Man 392, M. Bukar, Mecha Dragon 101, Megan, Michael Cravens, Mikey, Mr. Ryan 07, Modemania, Mr. Andy Pong, Mr. Beans and Dip, MSM Poke Gamer, Mytran, and over to you.
Nasir.
I'm passing that baton now.
I'm ready with Nasir, Nathan Burkhart, Naif E, Ninja 11, Pangy, Policy Pace, Paul Gale Network, Prime Factor, Prince Charmless, Braver, Rain Tech, Record Rumble, Riot 1, Rob, Rocks, Ryanetta, Sakura Sky, Sharif Jackson, Shinryu, Schmiggles, Slow Bro, Schnozzle, Spacey Poo, Spicy Munchkin, Steel Citrone, Sumifish, Tales of Link, Tay 120 and 64, Teal Fox 64, The Keggers, The Shark Among Men, The T-Man, Thomas Alvarez, Three Rivers, Timmy V, Topher Schmofer, Tor Cheeks, Totally Joe Ed, Travis Torline, Trajowie, Tugs Puppy Bear, Tuskoob, Tyler Geis, Video Game Stupid, Vidge Michter, Viridian, Virtual Bob, Weeb Kingdom, WG Grizzy, What Up Khalil, Wayu, Wicked Davy, Will Johnson, Zelgroth, Zapatty, and Zroid.
Great idea by you. Maybe so great we should do it that way from every point. Here on.
I don't think we should do that.
Time check in Toronto. What time is it?
9:32. It's dark outside now.
That means it's time to stop. Yes, I saw behind you. It transitioned from day into night.
Transition from day to night, like literally during this podcast, which is hilarious. But yes, it was really fun to do this podcast with you from Toronto. Back together next week for our regularly scheduled program. Hope you guys look forward to all of the stuff that we made for you from Summer Game Fest. We had a ton of fun, and what an exciting week it's been. And we can look forward to the Nintendo Direct, hopefully in the next week or so. Yay!
Indeed.
All right, if you'd like to support everything that we do on this channel, please join us on patreon.com/Kit and Krysta.
And if you are watching on video, you can go ahead and subscribe to this channel, give this video a thumbs up, and leave us a comment. If you are one of our great audio listeners, you can also subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and leave a written review if you please. All of those things really help a lot.
And we're on the social. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Threads. All right. I'm going to bed now.
Signing off.
Bye.